In this video, dive into the movie The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and character. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reaction. So let's get started. Disney Chronicles of Narnia movies franchise had an incredible start at box office. But the very next movie was a box office bomb. 2005 The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a movie adaptation of the incredibly popular C.S. Lewis novel of the same name. The book is one of the most iconic fantasy novels of 20th century, and is the first book of the Chronicles of Narnia series, which is made up of 7 Disney adapted a movie with the intention of its being the studio sponsor to Warner Bros. Phenomenally successful Harry Potter movie franchise. The first movie of the planned film franchise was a huge success and a promising sign of things to come. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe made an unbelievable $145 million wardrobe via Box Office Mojo, while the movie had a budget of bloated $180 million. Their gross profit is still more than impressive. The movie established Disney's new franchise, and many people thought that the follow-up, Prince Caspian, would be impossible to fail. But that's exactly what happened. By the time the sequels, the viewers of the John Theatre arrived in 2010, any interest in the franchise had completely gone, and 4 of the 7 planned movies were left unproduced. While The Lion, The Witch, and the Wardrobe was a huge success with a $74 million gross, Prince Caspian's box office performance was a disaster. The 2008 movie made $418 million worldwide, which would generally be a success for most other movies. Not only is it $300 million less than its predecessor, however, but the movie had an inflated budget of $25 million. There are several factors by why Prince Caspian massively underperformed compared to the 2005 movie. The most obvious factor why Prince Caspian failed, like the Chronicles of Narnia adaptations, was its huge dip in quality. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe had the magic, whimsy, and excitement that's typical of a fantasy movie. But Prince Caspian was severely lacking in those areas, which led to a worse audience reception and Rotten Tomato score. At 150 minutes, the movie is also long in the tooth, and while The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is only 7 minutes shorter, Prince Caspian feels longer due to its dual tone. Prince Caspian also faced major competition at the box office, as it was facing off against Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Iron Man. This was at a time when Disney did not own Marvel Studio and when Iron Man was not a popular superhero character. Disney liked to thought that the movie was not threat, but Iron Man became a surprise hit. However, the most detrimental factor was that Disney expected the movie to be successful solely based on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Audience simply did not have enough goodwill for the series to support the underwhelming movie. Prince Caspian made more than its production budget, taking into account the movie theater, cut of ticket sales, and the marketing. The movie would have still left theater around $100 million indirect, despite Prince Caspian being a box office bomb. Disney still went ahead with the third movie in the franchise, The Wares of Dawn Theater, in 2010. However, Disney made an even bigger mistake with the sequel. As the clearest reaction to Prince Caspian's underperformances, Disney stripped back the sequel, giving a budget of $140 million, $85 million less than its predecessor, and put much less care and effort into it, which further doomed the franchise. This decision worked from a net profit standpoint, as the movie actually made as much money as Prince Caspian at the box office. However, the viewers of the Dawn Theater, the series had finally entered Rotten Territory, sitting at 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. if Disney made another movie in the French Chronicles of Narnia franchise after sequel, the audiences would likely have wisened up. The fourth movie, The Magician Nephew, was announced in 2011. The right to be says the Lewis novels long now belong to Netflix, and its streaming services has not wasted any time in developing the Chronicle of Narnia movies. While details are still sparse, it was confirmed that Barbie's director Greta Gerwig has already signed onto Netflix's Chronicle of Narnia's reboot. Having a visionary filmmaker at the helm to take on such an ambitious undertaking could greatly help the movie series. Based on what has been reported about Barbie, Gerwig clearly knows how to play to an established IP strength by leaning into what makes it unique while also modernizing it for today's audiences. This is exactly why the Chronicles of Narnia series need. The Chronicles of Narnia has also never had particularly strong female character, which might have left female audience member unsatisfied, but with the director of Lady Bird and Little Woman at the helm, the Netflix movies could fix that. The upcoming Netflix reboot of the Chronicles of Narnia is now in production, and new details from the film set has indicated a major change for the popular franchise. Greta Gerwig's Narina is set to adopt a magician nephew, a prequel to The Lion, The Witch and the Wardrobe that was released in 1955. As is always the case with a reboot of a popular franchise or new adaptations of a classic novel series, there is a lot of curiosity about how Gerwig's Narnia movies will compare to what's come before. She has laid some of the inevitable comparison by taking the magician's nephew first, since the previous movie's franchise never adapted it. While that means some may be less familiar with C.S. Lewis's prequel book, there are several important details that they contain that have a direct connection to future Narnia stories. After all, this film will introduce a young witch, white witch, played by Emma Mackey, and set up the wider world of Narnia for future installment to explore. That's why how faithful is to be adapting the source material is already making waves. The new film looks set to make some compelling changes to the story of its world, which could have the enormous ramification for any sequel that might follow. While the novel The Magician's Nephew was set in 1900, the upcoming film looked to have changed this period setting to the 1950s. The set design and the costume that have been seen in new set photos from what's on Netflix seem to confirm this, as well as previously leaked casting call and detail from various outlets. This setting has not been officially confirmed, but it does seem likely to be the case for the upcoming film, as seen in the Narnia set photos. This might complicating things significantly for the franchise. Notably, the stories in the Narnia book were largely set in the 1940s during World War II. The Magician Nephew, 1955 to 1900. The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, 1950 to 1940. Prince Caspian The Return to Narnia, 1951 to 1941. The Whales of the John Trader. In order to craft a prequel to the series, C.S. Lewis decided to write a story about Professor Gregory Kirke and his involvement in the beginning of Narnia, with the professor being in his 50s in The Lion, The Witch and the Wardrobe. Lewis had to set The Magician's Nephew in 1900. If The Magician's Nephew film adaptations instead takes place in 1950, as has been suggested by the editor, then this sets out the entire timeline of the franchise. If further adaptations draw from the same novels and stories, that will mean that The Lion, The Witch and the Wardrobe sequel would need to be set in the 1990, moving the setting for this larger story into more contemporary terms in the interesting movie. It will surely inform the character style and outlook of the films, which Narnia time moves at a different pace. The characters in the film and the dynamics with one another must remain at least similar. Still, full details of what Gerwig is doing in Chronicle of Narnia remain to be seen. She has been vague about her plan for adaptations, and it's certainly possible that general detail about the world are instead being used to be the tell original stories. However, the film turned out, it is sure to be really fascinating. Greta Gerwig's upcoming Chronicles of Narnia movie is one of the most exciting projects coming to Netflix in the coming year, and it is huge upgrade for one a minor character from the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. There have been a lot of questions surrounding Rick Gervais' upcoming adaptation of CSS, Levy's iconic fantasy series, mainly having to do with how the project will differ from Disney's trilogy. While Netflix's adaptation was announced in 2018, details are finally starting to come out, including which book will get adapted first. Disney's The Chronicles of Narnia film series is iconic, with it further popularizing much of the iconography of the franchise. However, after three films were released, struggle to adopt the silver chain continued until 2017, when Netflix announced that it had acquired the Narnia's right. Coming fresh off the massive success of 2023 Barbie, Greta Gerwig will now be helming Netflix's new Narnia project, which will consist of multiple projects set within the franchise. However, it is already getting off to a pursued start. Rather than adapting the first published book in the Narnia series, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Greta Gerwig and Netflix have instead opted to adopt the first book in the series. The Magician's Nephew is the sixth published book in the franchise, but it acts as a prequel, with it being set in the year of 1900 and focusing on the origin of the wardrobe portal to Narnia. However, the film is deeply connected to the story of the land, the witch, and the wardrobe, with it is starring one character who only had a minor role in the first Disney movie. The Magician's Nephew focuses on the protagonist Gregory Kirke, a young boy from London who lives with his uncle Andrew. Andrew has created a set of magical rings that allows its various to travel to different worlds, which Gregory takes advantage of. By the end of the book, Gregory planned the core of one of Aslan's magic apple donut, with him later using the wood to create a titular wardrobe from the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe. Gregory Kirke is still around in the line, the witch, and the wardrobe, with him being the characters only known as a professor. The main character in the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe find themselves in the professor's house, with him using his wardrobe to enter Narnia. Although he is not in the first story entry in Fox's Narnia series much, it is nice to see that Netflix's series will give him the spotlight in his first Narnia film. Of the characters from The Magician's Nephew who return in The Lion, The Witch, and The Wardrobe, Gregory is the one who benefited the most from prequel. Aslan and the White Witch already get tons of screen time in the main series. However, the professor gets almost no story in The Lion, The Witch, and the Wardrobe, with his entire story being presented in Magician's Nephew. He is crux of the entire franchise, as he is the one who created the wardrobe to Narnia. Thus, it is important for the Netflix's project to not leave viewers hanging until the sixth Narnia story. Gregory plays a role in getting the character to Narnia, but he also plays a key role in the world of Narnia itself. When he uses the magic rings, Gregory initially goes to Charn. There he awakens an entity known as Jadis, who he accidentally leads to Narnia. By the end of the story, Gregory plants a magic apple seed that keeps Jadis at bay for continue. By the time that Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe roll around, however, Jadis has returned as a white witch. So Gregory is the one who unleashes the main antagonist of the first Narnia book into the Narnia. Releasing The Magician's Nephew first will make the prequel and the first book feel like an epic two-part saga, making it is a unique part for Greta Gerwig's Chronicle of Narnia's movies to take. The Chronicles of Narnia's franchise is certainly a beloved one, with its classic characters being brought to life based on the popular novel by C.S. Lewis. Various stories very enjoyable. There is no doubt that is the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the most well known, packed with the charismatic characters and an incredible story. This is one that was perfect for movies adaptations. Thankfully, the 2005 movie did not disappoint, with the classic story of good as versus evil being told in a whimsical yet adventurous manner. There is some dialogue which have to make the character easy to engage with, bringing a great range of emotions throughout. Mr. and Mrs. Bravers brings a lot of joy and comedy throughout the movie, playing the classic old married couple, baking a lot throughout which is done in a fun manner. They are tremendous supporting character and that makes them very likable. This particular quote is one of the funniest much as Mrs. Beaver's questions why he would not have packed a map with him. However, the response that Mrs. Beaver brings in perfect making it clear that food is the priority for him. Aslan is often known as a quiet, calm, and relaxed character throughout the movie. He is wise lion who provided great counsel to the young human who he tried to help grow and mature. However, this moment is a period where he actually snapped, showing an ingenuous, slightly scary side. This moment is a confrontation between himself and his nemesis and victories, and it is a something which really works well. It's a moment that makes people stand up and take notice of the power that he really has. I am sure you have either read or watched the movie of C.S. Lewis's classic children's novel. It is a great story, and if you have not read the book, you really need to. If you feel silly reading it an adult, read it to your kids or grandkids. You will like it more than they do. If you have not read the book or seen, I am not sure how that possible. I am about to ruin the ending, so be warned. Something has often bothered me about the ending of the book. It has the wrong conclusions. The story is exactly right in the description of Aslan as a righteous king who sacrifices himself to meet the demand for justice by Queen Jadis. This is what Jesus did on a crosses to defeat our Satan. In fact, this novel by Lewis does a masterful job of explaining and defending the Victor view of the entombment, which I think it is the correct view. So C.S. Lewis does a masterful job showing how Aslan's went to the stone table as a willing substitute for the sign of the Edmund, and how Jadis gratefully killed Aslan, thinking that by doing so, she had finally defeated him and won her right to rule over all Narnia as she pleased. But she did not know, as Aslan's letter explained to Susan and Lucy, about the deeper magic world allowed Aslan to rise from the dead and remove any claim upon Iman that Jadis might have had. But Aslan's assassin cried, "Did you not hear what Lucy said? Peter and the rest of the Narnians are fighting for their very lives right his instant. The queen is going to kill them all, and winter will come upon us once again. Are not you going to restore and protect your kingdom?" "Oh, my dear child," laughed Aslan, "it is not for you to know the time or season when the kingdom will be set up, but you will receive power not many days hence, and by the power you will proclaim to the end of all Narnia that I have dead, risen from dead, and the defeated Queen Jadis." But that is the point both girls said at once. Lucy continued, "Jadis is still alive and well. She is killing Narnians right over that mountain. Right now, she is not dead, she is not defeated." But as she spoke, Aslan rose up into the air and floated off into the cloud until he was out of their sight. Lewis did not end his story his way, because it made a horrible ending. But read Luke 24, John 21, and next one. This is pretty much how the story of Jesu's first coming concluded. First, it is possible Lewis meant nothing whatever by the ending. It is true that Lewis often stated that when he wrote a Lion, the Witch, and a Wardrobe, he was not intentionally writing an allegory about Jesus. Of course, whether he intended to do so or not, the story is clearly allegorical. Aslan is obviously Jesus, The four children obviously represent humanity. Jadis obviously represents Saturn. The head of Aslan at the hand of Jadis represent the head of Jesus on the cross. The resurrection of Aslan represents the resurrection of Jesus. But maybe that is where the parallels stop, and we should not try to make all the event in Levi's story fit even the Bible. If so, then Lewis wasn't trying to get the story to match the Bible, but was simply writing a good story. He liked ending it with a battle in which the bad people die. Who does not like a story like this? So maybe Lewis finished his story the way he did because it makes a better ending than the one we find in the Bible. But I am not content with that explanation. So maybe it could be argued that battle between the Aslan and Jadis at the end of the line, Davish and the wardrobe, is intended to be displayed the battle that rages in the book of Revelation. But then this does not explain why C.S. Lewis wrote a lost battle, which is a book I am rereading right now and will write a post on a future date. Ultimately, it seems that no matter how we look at it, the end of line, Davish and the wardrobe does not fit with its capture. After Jesus rises from the dead, the Bible records numerous objections and questions any confusion about what exactly Jesus did or did not do. Then Jesus ascends into a heaven, and there is more confusion. Afterwards, in Act 2, the F-soldiers receive power and then they go out to continue the battle against their defeated foe. Many of them suffer and die horrible death. 2000 years later, we are still waiting for Aslan's return. Many are still suffering and dying at the end hand of defeated after who seem quite undefeated. So that is exactly the problem. The Bibles everywhere say Satan is defeated, but experiences says otherwise. The world seems to be getting worse. Evil seems to be increasing. What is the answer? What is the solution? Why did Jesus have leave us right when he needed him most? Part of the answer, I think, is found in another movie. By this time, in Star Wars A New Hope, the part where Obi-Wan dies and its result, both Skywalker and the Darth Vader think that Empire has won. Little do they know that Obi-Wan has now become more powerful than ever. This is not exactly what happened with Jesus, but he did say in the John. He said that it was the over advantage of him to go away, because only then could he send the Holy Spirit. Jesus could only be in one place at one time, but the Spirit of God is in all places with all people at the same time. Frankly, I am not sure why we did not have both, but that is another question for another time. In the end, we have to trust Jesus that he knows what he is doing, and that Satan really is defeated, and that our job, our responsibility, our task on his heart is to continue the battle that Jesus has already won. The struggle against the principalities and power, against rulers of darkness in this age, and against the spiritual forces of the wickedness. In a very literal sense, we could argue from scripture that Jesus has returned in and through each one of his church. As the body of Christ, we are the incarnation of Jesus in this age. So we are the one to endraw those who have been held captive by sin. We are the one to go forth against evil. We are the one to battle down the gate of hell. Maybe, just maybe, this is what C.S.L. Lewis meant when he wrote about the return of Aslan in the battle against Queen Lettice. If so, this is why Susan and Lucy rode with him. For now, when Jesus rides out battle, he does not ride alone, but ride with all who bear the name of Christ. I think I am going to read the ending of the line, David's shiny wardrobe, this way from now on. I guess see, Lewis was not wrong for after all. Maybe the problem is not that Levi's story disagreed with Scapeture, but that we have misunderstood Scapeture. Maybe the ending to the line, Davis and the wardrobe, actually just fit with the Scapeture, and we have been misreading Scripture all along. Maybe that battle in the book is the battle we are currently waging right now, and Aslan is not just Jesus, but is all who belong to the body of Christ on earth. In our job, it is our task to go forward and wage war against those spiritual forces that have enslaved Adam. We cannot sit back, they say, or is such an evil word. I am just going to sit here on my padded bench at the bus station, waiting for the heavenly bus from heaven to come back, pick up me, and take me away to eternal bliss. No, Jesus rises from the dead, and in the church, he is riding forward his powerful glory, and rightness to set the captives free, to proclaim sight to be blind, and liberty to those who are oppressed. Let me put in this way, Jesus is a redeemer of the world, but he worked in the through his people to bring the reality of that redemption to the world. If we just sit back and wait for the end to come, then does that mean for the world? It means they lose hope. They suffer, they die. So in the end, I guess Lewis was right after all, but Aslan is no longer just Aslan. In the end, Aslan ride out with Lucy and Susan on his back, and an army of freed captives in the train. Now that J.R.R. Tolkien's region as box office king of Narnia, the Lion Devil Shandy Wardrobe, Warding's level below. Totals won't be matched. There is a little doubt Disney's massive marketing push will be banking. Now that J.R.R. Tolkien's region as box office king among that Oxford fantasy author has run its course. All challenge C.S.S. Lewis is being nominated as his successor with the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, not nearly as imposing as The Lord of the Rings, as mythology, drama or literature Lewis series. A seven-models land book has nevertheless been popular since Lion first appeared in 1950. Just coincidentally, it also provided the opportunity for the sort of the extravagant computerized effect that create tentpole movie attractions these days. While Rings level BO totals won't be matched, there is a little doubt Disney's massive marketing pushing the services of a competently made film that appeal to all demography will be banking money from this one for the identified future. Unlike the much more demanding and young adult oriented Ring Cycle Lewis themes are geared toward children. To many adults, they can seem simplistic, somewhat derivative, and downright out of analyzed as Christian's fable or metaphor. Lion functions best as a wizard of Oz, like a trip. An expression of innocent parent, deprived children's imaginative escape from dreary reality into an but perilous world of strongly personified good and evil dominated by animal, human-like characters and a witch, like Ozzy. It similarly ends with Lee's confronting decision to return to their dull reality rather than to stay in a wondrous land where they are regarded as hero and royalty. Like Peter Jackson's Rings trilogy, the line is presented by the famously family-friendly producer Mark Johnson along the Phillips stature on a scale and a clear accent on New Zealand location. What it lacks in the complexity, distinguished angles, Asian Yank escaping one war zone merely to find another sibling's better. Susan, Edmund, and little Lucy are spirited out of London during the Blairs by their mother to the calm of a distant country, a state inhabited by the professor. During a game of hide and seek, Lucy ducks into a large wardrobe, only to find herself transported into a fantasy forest where she meets a Flan, Mr. half man, half goat who expresses wonder at the arrival of a girl he called the daughter of Eve and invite her of his cozy abode. Big-eyed, snub-nosed, and pleasantly plump, Henley conveys a curiosity that makes her an ideal candidate for the wonderment one is meant to feel in this new world. It falls to the point to explain that Narnia is ruled by a terrible queen, the White Witch, who keeps the land in eternal winter and has prevented Christmas from coming for 100 years. After the Queen has decreed that any human found in Narnia must be delivered straight to her, Mr. Jonas lets her go. On Lucky's second trip through the wardrobe, she is followed by doubting brother Edmund, very good at his skepticism and incident, who is promptly founded by the Queen. Peak Central adventures start at the 40 minutes mark, as Lucy and Edmund are joined by the older Peter and Susans to wander around the forest until being taken in by Mr. and Mrs. Beaver. Computer animated creators are illegal, jumped at news of the imminent arrival of the great Saver Aslan, and the savior they will need as a disgruntled Edmund has slipped away to see the Queen, only to be thrown into a frigid cell along with the fawn. Informed of the Interpolar's arrival, the witch dispatches her flying monkeys. Air Meriting was to intercept them. The film's most brilliantly animated creature, the was featured into a scary scene that, along with some violent battle moment, pushed the film to and perhaps beyond the invisible line between PG and PG-13 territory. Simply put, unprepared small fry may get more than they can handle. With the interest of the Lion King era Aslan, the Enterprise is endowed with a gravitas that lends the drama, moral purpose, and inspire the hitherto pitchable and arguably whimly English gear to advanced level determinism, as voiced by the ringly noble Irish angle, is prone as a well-known wizard, one side to be think deep thought. His uncanny ability to say and to do the right thing extend to realms that a mortal man and beasts can't comprehend when he makes a private deal with the Queen that entail sacrificing himself for the greater good. This scene staged as an act of the ancient ritual that Mel appreciate is another that impressionable may find tough to watch, as it is for Susan and Lucy, who have accompanied Aslan on his fateful journey. Peak's credibility hangs as much on the visualization of the lion as on anything else. Compared with the woes, the imposing Aslan looks somewhat less lifelike at first. His expressions seem a bit posed, and the waviness of his mane and utter hair is not entirely naturalistic. But one soon accept him as his movement carry a deliberate composure and his reading convey a sitting delight. Climatic battle, the scale of which has rather more to do with the Lord of Rings than with anything in the Lewis text, is marked not only by its spectacle but by its unique contingency. Both sides are populated not only by recognizable members of the animal kingdom, but by creatures of unfathomable origin combination man-beast divided by the beautiful and the Queen's minions. Good tramps of the course and then end credits is not leaves the wardrobe over wide open for a sequel, as lucky as the professor. Although there are a few obvious process, shots and detailed painted backdrop, the film's design element and special and visual effect have mostly impressive, seemingly. The only thing the duck could not pull off is making the character bad visible on the mostly winter setting. Combined after the production designer Roger Ford, costume designer visual, kids work well together. Although the more upright personalities of the soldier siblings prevent mostly and pop people well from being as entertaining as are Henley and Kane is as white as a vampire. Swinton Levens or her icy queen with nearly a white of vulnerability. Harry Gregor's Williams score being helpful vigor to the enterprise, which is addition to New Zealand, was partially shot in Poland, the Czech, England, and it's tough to have to trash a film that so many people were hoping would be really good. I counted myself among the group, despite the fact that my familiarity to the story came primarily through other lacking adaptations, including the cartoon and the BBC version with all actor in animal suit. I have never really been a die-hard Narnia film, although I understand and sympathize with those who are as Levi's magical kingdom, ruled by the lion Aslan and threatened by the diabolical white witch, has entranced and the enchanted reader, both young and old, for over half a century. The sad fact that every attempted film adaptations, including this one, has failed leads me to believe that perhaps it is the one of those stories battle left to the printed page. The failure in his case, I believe, can be traced to be the director and his apparent selfish devotion to the source material. Judging by the way the Disney's marketing department is packaging this as its next Lord of Rings, how the gratingly a familiar voice of Lodger affect my research rather in epic material to explain. It all began amid the chaos of World War II. London bombs are falling like rain, and bombers fill the sky like ominous blackbird of war. Four young children, Badger, Edmund, Susan, and Lucy, ranging in age from their early teen to about 6 years old, are hastily put on a train headed out of town and sent to live with a weird professor in his dark and fancy mansion. All this happened in the first few minutes with no real regard to who these kids are as possible and why we should care to watch their journey. The whirlwind of it all would probably disorient most kids in the audiences, as if war is never explained, but rather left as a potentially abstract and arbitrary threatening occurrence, coupled with the whisking away of these poor innocent children to another unexplained white village. Lemonly snaked, while probably by be the first thing that come to mind for many such kids, but they would be wrong in that assumption, as the old professor is actually a good eccentric. While playing hide and seek, the youngest girl, Lucy, hides in an old wardrobe, which turns out to be the getaway to the magical world of Narnia. After a few scenes of her siblings dribbling her and traveling back and forth, all four eventually make it a trip. Narnia is a beautiful but cold and lonely land, where we are told it's always winter but never Christmas. All manner of the creatures but real and mythical populate Narnia, and all are overjoyed at the prophesied arrival of actual flesh and blood human beings. The cinematic problem is in the our many, as no time is spent to develop the children as characters early on and intelligence allowed itself, resulting in much greater payoff its fantasy journey. Yes, the kids all wind up in the Narnia, but there is a never an indication that maybe they went to go somewhere else, away from the stasis of existence, Ella never of Rainbow, or Luke Skywalker Twin Suns moment. Consequently, we feel no urgency in their feeling their prophecy of getting home. After all the good tracking animal and creature of Narnia don't seem to terribly drawn about the 100 years legend of evil, and are never in any kind of real hurry to do anything. That's not to say the friendly Mrs. and Mrs. Beware of all the taking animal. Don't get excited at the prospect of the land's salvation upon the children's approaching arrival. But let's just say the intensity level of their joy never goes beyond that of what we would expect from an intellectual English professor, one of whom just so happened to be their real life creator. It is the exploitations of their sad creator, a non-Christian apologist and author among the American Christian culture, that has been another small fly in the ointment, served up to unwittingly congregations by the very publicity house that so effectively fed them. The passion of the grace, thus making it massive hit, screening or once again being bought out wholesale by people of it. These people likely will not be disappointed with the handing of the Christian's allegory, synonymous with the 12, and they may even go for flawed integrations of CGI creatures and the human actor. Check out the Wacky Eye line issue when Peter has his talk with the Aslan. If they are the type who don't see many movies, but I can't imagine anyone being significantly moved or entertained by this something this crowd will rightfully claim that this material deserves and demand. Methinks a burnt a bridge to the elusive middle American church market on only the second time out. Next time a studio dangles a film in front of them. I doubt they will be quite so quickly to buy Oscar gaining sight unseen. Director Andrew Edmund, previously known for his co-direction on the significantly more entertaining animated Shrek films, reveals here through his flawed sense of pacing that perhaps the deliberation of the occurred among the multiple directors of the agri movie was sorely lacking here. While I am sure the investors in the adventure were excited at the notion of an as animated directing, so due to his ability to bring all those wonderful creatures to 3D life. This proves to be the yet another example of why effect guys, for all intent and purposes. That's how I call him, should not direct. Granted, this is not really a love misfire on the level of Spawn, but the ability to create semi-realistic talking animal does not a director make. And another brain thinks the animation is not anything all that great in comparison to what we have seen elsewhere. Sure, the beavers are fun, and Aslan's, well voiced by Liam, looks properly regal, but even if a CG animal is 85% impressive, which these are is that other 15% that make all the difference. Check out the sequences with the bad guy henchman, a pack of next sea wolves. For example, the wolves are sent on their mission by the White Witch, and as they speak, accepting the order and leave. They are the kind of just too slick of reality CGI years ago or so. Cut to them running through the woods, sliding in the snow, making an insect movement obviously real moves. Finally, they stop and the lead wolf says something. The shift back to digital wolves is almost whiplash daring. The movie Babe had much better tracking animal effect than this, and it was over 10 years ago. Of course, it also used a lot of really great puppet and more real animal utilizing considerably less CGI. I was recently told that Lewis himself supposedly once wrote that the only way, in his opinion, to properly brings Narnia to life would be as a high-end Disney's animated feature. In his day, meaning traditional cell animation and nothing less. Integrations real actors alongside fake animal and creatures would simply to be much of a strain on the audience's willing suspensions of disbelief in the case of this sale. I think he is absolutely essentially right. Unfortunately, with the era of cell animation pronounced officially dead by the very studio that ultimately used their adaptations to the screen, I doubt we will ever see such a properly realized offer anytime soon. If you are unfamiliar with the line, The Witch and the Wardrobe, I suggest picking up the book before taking in this film. It's another Lord of Rings film experiences you are hoping for. Get out your DVDs. If it's a Christian's allegory you are after, again try the book or any member of it. Better crafted good versus evil chosen one tale. If you want to see an epic battle realized on screen, try Braveheart or even Navisca. In this film's intensity of the final battle does not coincide with the kid-friendly tone of the rest of a story. And when the two armies finally charge into battle against one another, it's almost comedic how long it takes for them to finally collide. One side charges, then the other side charges. Close up for one of kids, close up of a bad guy, close up of another kid, close up of another bad guy. Another wide shot, they are closer. Close up of a tricking animal charging, close up of a bad guy animal, close up of battle leading the charge. You could almost go out for popcorn and not miss any action, but collide they do, and the battle does have a few impressive moments. Even if like most of the film, it does not offer anything stunningly visually new, which would not be that big of a problem, except that it reads like it should. This film does not completely stink, but at its best, it's about as good as the first Harry Potter movie. At its worst, it's unbearably dull, wide, and long-winded. Sadly, this is not a movie that's the Lavish, the Lion Davis, and the wardrobe deserves. We live in a story shaped world, As children, we are introduced to realms of enchantment in fairy tales, later perhaps in school or at camp. We share tall tales, ghost stories, and wild adventures set in strange land. As adults, we look to a variety of story forms to entertain, instruct, and sometimes even to perform transform us. And as spiritual people, we want something more from us, our stories. Christian novelists praise Putin well. We crave nothing less than a perfect story. And while we chatted or listened all our lives in a den of craving jokes, considered novels, dreams, films, plays, songs, half the world of our days we are satisfied only by one short tale we feel to be true. History is the will of a just God who knows us. These airings helped explain the heightened expectation surrounding the release of this new film version of the classic fantasy tale by C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, written in 1950. It is the first of the 7-volume series, The Chronicle of Narnia, which collectively has sold more than 85 million books in 29 languages. Lewis, a lecturer in the Medieval or literature at Oxford and Cambridge, became well known as a Christian apologist for his radio shows and book Mere Christianly, The Problem of Pain, The Secure Trap Letter. He wrote his fantasy series and also some science fiction to convey his delight in the joy and mystery of the human adventure. The Narnia stories are set in the context of an imaginary world where issues of right and wrong, trust and betrayal, life and death come vividly into focus. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Lewis has stated, began as a picture in my mind of a fawn carrying an umbrella and parcel in a snowy wood. Now, thanks to the creative energies of the directors Andrew Edmund, who can write the screenplay with an Peacock, Christopher Marks, and Stephens, this fantasy tale has been brought to the screen with live-action sequences, stunning visual effects, and the latest advances in CGI animation. During the German bombing of London during the World War II, Mrs. Stands for Our Children by train to the countryside. Peter, the oldest, is responsible teenager. Susan is the smartest and most practical sibling. Edmund is a joker who is always getting into trouble, and Lucy is the youngest with the most active imagination. When they arrive at his country house of the professor, they are warned by his officious house speaker not to shout, not to run, and never to disturb him. One day while the children are playing hide and seek, Lucy ducks into a wardrobe filled with 4 coats and steps out the back of it into the magical world of Narnia. Amazed at his turn of events, she wandered through this beautiful winter wonderland. At the iron post, she meets her Thomas, a kind-hearted fawn who is still to the meets her daughter of Eve. In his humble cave, he tells his wide-eyed visitor that the white reason is Narnia and make it always winter and never Christmas. It has been this way for 100 years, and according to prophecy, will only change when our human, who 2 daughters of Eve and 2 sons of Adam, come to replace her. Also, our inhabitants of the kingdom have been warned that no protected human being is tantamount to treason. Mr. decided to disobey the law, and the help of Lucy returned to her own world. Like in the professor's house, Lucy is dismayed to discover that particularly no time has passed since he has been gone, and worse, her siblings don't believe her story. But later, Edmund also finds the way into Narnia. He falls under the spell of the white witch, who offers to make him a king if he delivers his brother and his sister to her place. What attempt Edmund and most of the promises that he can eat all the Turkish delight treats he wants. He will learn later that the witch gives all the animal and mythical creature under her control because he has her power to return her opponent into stone. Back from his adventure in Narnia, Edmund betrays Luke by denying that it exists. Eventually, all the children go through the wardrobe into Narnia, and Edmund sneaks off to seek out the White Witch, who sends out a pack of the ravenous wolves to kill his brother and his sister. They have met up with Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, Ray, Winston, and John, who are escorting them to the camp of Asian by Liam Neeson, a great and loving lion. Along the way, they meet Father Christmas James, who give them a special tool to use on the other mission, which Aslan explained to them. There are quite a number of impressive things about the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe. We single out a very fine performance by Georgie Henley as young Loki, who is the heart and soul of the story, with her curiosity and tender feeling. Her interaction with her friend Mr. Chumness and the later Aslan are especially appealing. Tilda Swinton does a remarkable job in not making the white witch into a cliched door. She is credible and not over the top. The voice of Liam Neeson gives a centered and calm respect to Aslan and the scenery in Narnia, shot in New Zealand and the Republic in the beautiful. The film moves along nicely, closing following the book and filling it out some with addition of two action sequences during the spring draw in Narnia. But then the whole tone of the story shifted in preparation for the war between Aslan's army and the White Witch legends. What the book covers in the 2 pages becomes a long battle sequences. The filmmakers fall into the same excess that we saw in the Lord of Rings trilogy. Many people have interpreted the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as a Christian's allegory in the life. That in description of Jesus Christ. Lewis himself advised his fans to approach the Chronicle of Narnia as multi-world stories with many meanings. One of those meanings is the transformative power of forgiveness. If we look at the story as primarily about the 4 children, then we see that the dramatic line is what happened to Edmund. His reduction by the witch due to his weakness, his betrayal of his sibling, his suffering as he discovers the error of his choice, his rescue, his repentance, and his reconciliation with his family. In the book, we see Edmund change and at a key point personally apologize to Peter, Susan, and Lucy. In the movie, we see Edmund talking with Aslan and hear Aslan tell the other that they need not talk about the past anymore. Edmund never asks for forgiveness. Aslan does everything for him, a serious diminishment of the forgiveness team. This brings us to the questions of who Aslan in the story. Many of our conservative Christian brothers and sisters are embarrassing him as a Christ figure who atones for Edmund with a blood sacrifice and then rises again to defeat the white fish. But look closely. Would Christ advise Peter to always wipe his sword clean of blood? Jesus tells Peter to put away his sword. Would Jesus encourage Susan and soon to be double Susan to gentle at her coronation as the Queen of Narnia to send an arrow through the heart of the white which is sled driver? When Aslan leaps upon the white witch and kills her, are you reminded of Christ? It is time for the Christian community to lay to rest the image of war as the only way to battle the principalities and power. Paul described those who do evil things in our world. Yes, we all need to be resist anything that destroys life. But the essential way to do is according to the gospel and the life of Jesus is by becoming non-violent barriers for peace and justice. Let's hope that someday Sona trilogy imaginative filmmaker will give a story where good guys and guys do not kill evil Jor, but transform them into the friends and allies. Noted would be true to the spirit and message of Jesus Christ. DVD special feature include the commentary by director Andrew, production designers Roger Ford. The original book series The Chronicle of Narnia, written by C.S. Lewis in 1950, is an enduring classic for a reason. However, some of the older themes and darker elements make it difficult to adapt to the screen. Greta Gerwig is set to direct the first 2 movies in the upcoming adaptations for Netflix. But the first film's iterations from Disney ran into the thematic problem in the early 2000s. While Lewis kept his plot development consistent and adhered to the rules created by Narnia, this does not mean the average choices will connect with the modern audiences. It's easy to question why Aslan destroys Narnia in the book, but much of it is connected to the Christian influences that prevails in Narnia book. Aslan is characterized as Jesus Christ, and at the end of the last battle, that determines that the land of Narnia is flawed and need to face judgment. He created new Narnia for the creature and human to be journeyed to after being judged. This connects to the new Narnia being considered heaven and is a metaphor for the character, including the Pevensies doing and ascending to heaven. One of the worst parts of his ending to the fact that Susan Pevensie is excluded from the new Narnia and essentially barred from entering heaven. In the book, Lewis explained this is because Susan has become a concerned, with firewallers things that has years out of being part of Narnia. Unlike the other children who has also become adult but are allowed to enter the true Narnia. Unfortunately, this can easily be interpreted as a sixth aspect of the Narnia book and then demonstrates some of the major problems that Jerving and the creative team faced. It is eventually revealed at the end of the last battle that not only humanly gone to the true Narnia, but they have also died in a train accident on Earth. While this is an intense ending, it is not surprising for readers who have been with Narnia since the beginning. Lewis has never been afraid to put his character through their paces and make definitive comment and moral judgment about them. Lewis has never been afraid to put his characters through their paces and make definitive comment and a moral judgment about them. Additionally, since the Narnia novels are so in the conversation, where Christianity could only end with the destruction of the first Narnia and the creation of heaven. The Chronicle of Narnia has many great redemption of stories like Edmund is the Lion, The Wish and the Wardrobe. In a sense, the Pevensies and the other worldly Narnia characters journeying to the new Narnia is the ultimate redemption arc. Even it lays out Susan, but a more serious religious element combined with the escapism of the early book in the series make it easy to understand why Lewis would choose to end his book this way. Bringing the Pevensies back and making the story come full circle was fitting. After spending so many years with the Pevensies and watching them grow up, it's difficult to witness them trying only to enter heaven. Though they are older, they are still just young adults when they enter the new Narnia. Plenty of children's fantasy movies grapples with darker theme and that ending the new Narnia movies with all the main characters passing away might be tough for some audiences. The Chronicle of Narnia adaptations does not necessarily need a happy ending, but the legacy of the new films is the utmost importance. Netflix's upcoming reboot of the Chronicles of Narnia is on its way, being led by one of the most successful and versatile director, Greta, coming off her highly successful Barbie film. However, the most exciting part of these adaptations is the return of one of the greatest villains in fantasy history. Long before the world was introduced to the morally ambitious queen of Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, Narnia terrified a generation with Jadis, the White Witch. The White Witch was a villain defined not by fairy power, displays, or screaming monologue, but by a quiet cruelty that felt terrifyingly adult in a story meant for children. Thanks to Tilda Swinton's unforgettable performance in the 2005 film, Jadis remains one of the genre's most psychologically chilling antagonists, benchmark for how to play evil with elegance. As the streaming genre prepared to relaunch, the film shares the success of the endeavor, rests less on the CGI line and more on the woman who claim to rule him. Jerry stands apart from typical fantasy villain because she does not rely on the traditional villain standard, which makes them look scary and dreadful. Instead, the White Witch thrives on politics, look and voice, and manipulation. She lacks the fairy, disembodied eye of a Sauron and the melodramatic cackle of a Disney witch. In an era where every pop culture villain gets a sympathetic backstory explaining how society broke down, Jerry stands out because he never has one. She was simply born to break everything else. According to C.S. Lewis's original text and a deep lore of Narina, Jadis is not even human. She descends from the jinn and the giant, a lineage that makes her physically and magically superior to the sons of Adam she hunted. Her terrifying nature was established long before she ever set foot in Narina. Originally the queen of Charn, a giant universe under her blood-red sun, Jadis intended a civil war against her own sister, not by winning, but by speaking the deplorable word. A piece of forbidden magic that annihilated every living thing in her universe except herself. She later boasted, I was the only thing living beneath the sun. This is definition of a narcissist who would later then rule a graveyard and share a kingdom. This context explains why her arrival in Arena is so chilling. She did not freeze the land because she was giving. She froze it because she was bored and waiting. After stealing a silver apple from the Guardian of Youth to gain joyless immortality, she spent 900 years banished to the wild land of the north, repelled by a magical top tree of protection. During those centuries of isolation, she did not reflect, she evolved. She became an expert in dark magic, developing the wand that could petrify victim into living stone status, a fate far worse than beneath. Her 100 years winter is the ultimate expression of this control. If she cannot be loved, she ensures that nothing else can grow. In short, her survival motto was, if I cannot have it, no one else can. Hence, her winter is the ultimate expression of this control. If she cannot be loved, she ensures that nothing else can live. The genius of her villainy lies in how she translates this cosmic power into psychological warfare. Nowhere is more evident that in her interaction with Edmund Prevenses when she was wins him over with the Turkish delight, identifying his insecurities as a middle child. She offers him a transaction betray your family, and I will treat you like the adult you desperately want to be. It is terrifying, mature form of manipulations inserted into a children's story, proving that her greatest power is not her magic, but her ability to use someone's weakness against them for her own selfish means, and doing that with the subtlety. When directors Andrew Adamson adopted the line, The Witch and the Wardrobe in 2005, he and Tilda Swinton consciously avoided the cackling witch trope that had dominated children's media for decades. They instead opted for a figure who, from the outside, looked ethereal but from inside, is cruelty eminence. Swinton famously conceptualized the character not as a fantastical creature, but as something beyond. She looks like the utmost white supremacist, which is what she is, Swinton once said, describing the characters, comparing her to Nazi. This has transformed the character from a fairy tale villain into a modern nightmare. Swinton's genius lay in her physicality and vocal delivery. Rather than walking, she seemed to glide across snow. Rather than shooting the whispered, in the iconic carriage entrance scene, the sound design of dropout, creating a vacuum of silence that sucked the life out of the forest. Swinton's voice was recorded with close mic technique to capture every breathly, intimate inflection, making it sound like she was speaking directly into audience's brain. Visually, the lighting team employed a specific strategy, initially lighting her with a soft beauty light to make her appear maternal to entombed, before shifting the shadows into her eyes socked to reveal the skull beneath the skin as the conversation turned dark. A lot of her villainy comes from the visual storytelling, and Isis' costume design played a huge part in creating that atmosphere Dragon was constructed using a complex ice crackle technique layering flatted wool silky, allows to mimic the organic texture of glacial ice. Crucially, the costume evolved as the narrative progressed. In the beginning, Jadis is tall, spiky, and imposing physically, manifesting absolute control of the 100 years winter. As the slum Jalloin approaches and the snow melts, her crown shrinks, her dress becomes a heavy and slush-like, and she transitions from an ethereal goddess into a disparate feral warriors wearing men of golden fur. Swinton played his degradation perfectly, letting the crack in her composure show just enough to reveal the pending underneath. Her performances at the stone table, where she plunks the knife into Aslan, is not a moment of triumph, it's a moment of grief. She proves that a villain does not need to be the loud or dramatic to be dramatic. They just need to be the absolutely terrifying certain. Greta Grimm's adaptation has a unique opportunity to deepen Jadis in ways of previous films could not. Reports indicate that Gehring is starting with the magician nephew, the prequel book that tells Jadis' origin story, not as the Queen of Narnia, but as the Empress of Charn. This is a game changer. It allowed the reboot to show the fans Jadis before their eyes, revealing her as a desperate warlike Talon fighting a civil war against her own sister. With very few details about the plot known, it is too early to say whether the reboot will be based solely on Jadis' life and the events surrounding it. But it all provides Gerwig with one of the most terrifying concepts in fantasy history. The deplorable word in the books. Jadis revealed that she ended the war in Charn not by winning, but by speaking a single magic word that annihilated every living thing in the universe except for herself. This transforms her from a static fantasy villain into a figure of unimaginable set. Imagine of a 1950s setting for the London sequences suggest Gerwig might future this destructive power as a metaphor for the Cold War and nuclear anxiety. In this context, the deplorable word can be used in the real world threat, and Jadis become the person who drives that terror. Furthermore, the reboot can explore the tragedy of her immortality. After fleeing Charn, Jadis lost Silver Apple from the garden of youth to gain eternal life. But as the warning at the gas for sweaty for those who steal the fruit find, their hearts desire and find despair. Jadis gains immortality, but she loses the ability to enjoy it. The fruit becomes in her mouth, and her internal life becomes a hollow, joyless existence driven only by the hunger of power. This adds a layer of tragic complexity to her character that Tilda Swinton version hinted at but never explicitly showed. With the casting of the Emma Mackey as the White Witch in the reboot, we might see her as a young figure, but arrogant, passionate, and physically imposing, which contrasts with the coldness of the latter year. Fans are hoping the reboot captured the origin, the rise, and the descent of the various queen who burned their word to save her throne, only to freeze another one because he forgot how to feel anything else. Almost 2 decades since Ben Barnes first debuted, the character of Princess Caspian in the live-action The Chronicle of Narnia films, he is throwing his weight behind a fantasy series for a new generation. The Chronicle of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe premiered in 2005, and Barnes joined the franchise in the titular sequel that followed in 2008. C.S. Lewis's fantasy series never reached full completion in feature film form, but that may change now that Greta Gerwig is behind the wheel. The Westworld actor spoke to Variety about his support for the new venture. With classic literature, there is no end to the ways that can be adapted as long as it's being fresh and speaking to a new generation. I think that those stories have this one Some fantasy really allows you to tell beautifully allegorical stories about hope and goodness and fate. I think that I would be really interesting to see her take on that. I am thrilled that Narina is getting retold. Serving is reportedly adopting the magician's nephew, which incidentally does not follow the path that was laid out in the film before. That book is technically the sixth in this series, but its event takes place before the story nephew is a prequel and has already trapped Daniel Craig, Meryl Streep, and Emma Mackey for a significant role. For Barnes thought he's also looked ahead. Ben Barnes has a reputation for playing less than heroic characters for the past decade. But in his newest project, he is returning to form. The Punisher actor stars in the Stephen King adaptations, The Institute, which is premiering on MGM Plus, based on King's novel of the same name. It follows the abnormous facility where children with special ability are studied. When I was in my early 20s, I was involved in telling those stories for the next generation. So to get back to playing a man with a real film, grasp on his moral compass, who is fighting to stand up for what's right. It was something that I was really interested in. Since his early years, has portrayed many villains from Dixa in The Punisher to the Drink, Darkling in Netflix's Shadow and Bone. Fans can find a reprieve from the type of fare in his new television series, set to premieres on July 13. Greta Gerwig's Chronicles of Narnia is still in development, but viewers can watch breakout performances in the original film by streaming the original franchise on Disney+. This past month, I watched the BBC version of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. For the first time, I had seen all the other BBC Narina's movie, but I finally got around to watching the first one last. So here is my review. First, I would like to make allowances for the lower level of technology these people had to work with who does not. But for the 1980s even, I think this was totally corny. The animal costumes were not as realistic as they could have been. The acting Barbara has overdone and awkward. The animated creatures were both stupid and unnecessarily and the battle. Oh boy, that did not even look like they were fighting. And the music did not fit and the blob. Okay, no, that's probably a common stifle among many Narina's fans. So now what aspect of the BBC were admirable? What did they get right that other versions should pay attention to? There was a lot of things that did stand out to me. Actually, here is a few of them. The White Witch's castle was made of stone, true to the book, with a very creepy interior. Not a very big one, and it does not run the obvious risk of melting. Slower pace. There is more time to meet these characters. I may not have killed all of them, and enjoy the atmosphere of the world. For the most part, it's pretty enjoyable, especially because it's surreal. More real stuff, there is just no need for CJ backdrop and excessive use of studio set. The real world has enough beauty in it to have inspired Narina. Let it represent it. There are just a few on my list. I am hoping to further discuss this was later. It's been a while since I watched that adaptations, but I remember not liking the casting of better. Or maybe there was a problem with the writing. He was always chastising Edmund for being a brat, which I theoretically like. It definitely makes sense for the characters. But the way it played out, it made Peter come across as really self-righteous compared to the other kids. I found it hard to like him when they play hide and seek. He says he has to because he is the oldest, and he says so. I know some people are throwing up their hands at me saying that about the BBC series when the Walden's media adaptations of Peter made him way more full of himself and hard to like. But I can't think of other things to say, both good and bad. About Ed Narina's adaptations, there is not a lot about the BBC that stand out me, so I focus on what I can. I kind of wish there was a transcript online for me to read. Then I could give more thought on the adaptations without having to actually watch the damn things. There was one thing that I liked about the BBC production that has not been mentioned here before was the location of filming in Wales and other parts of Britain. I think Narinas was much like medieval England. The outdoor locations made its setting feel more like Britain, where much of it was actually filmed. And although they did not have much money, I think that part of it worked. Of the actors, I love Tom Baker's as Andy Silverchair. In fact, I think he was about as good as he was as Doctor Who. It does not really matter that much to me if some people believe this series was corny. The actors playing the four children were not professional and performed as well as most children would. The animal costumes probably could have been better, but maybe the people that made them thought they were making the best ones possible. If you visit the Lamppost Listener podcast, you will find a generally positive view of the old BBC series. We have lived now for 30 years in the era of the cinematic blockbuster. It began with the massive launch of New York in 1975 and has encompassed four enormous series that have provided their audiences with eye-popping special effects, are spiritually uplifting the mismatch of myth, legend, religion, and pop culture homage, and the prospect of more to follow in a year's time. These series Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and now the Lion, The Witch and the Wardrobe. The first episode in the Chronicles of Narnia are known as the franchise, a term borrowed by the Bransley commercialized cinema for those enormous chain of hotels and fast food joins the spread around the world bearing identical logos. We also live in an age where everyone is immediately informed of the financial success or otherwise of all new films. Were he alive today, Oscar Wilde would describe a movie as a man who knows the weekly gross of everything and the value of nothing. The big question is, will C.S. Lewis Narina book David as in cinematic form over the next 7 years? Perhaps, but in 50 years' time, will today's pre-teens be bidding at acquisition for their Victorian wardrobe in the professor's house or the White Witch coach? The way an earlier generation wanted ruby slippers on Canny's rosebud sludge, like Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter films. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is a very English affair, aimed at young children, who I'm sure will love it. It's briskly directed for much of the way, with no great individuality by Andrew Adamson, a filmmaker previously noted for his work in animation, most notably the Shrek movies, drawing on what was, for the book's original reader, the wild experiences of the Second World War. The film centers on four middle-class children, Susan and Peter, who are near teenagers Edmund, whose years are so younger than Peter, and Lucy, who is around 8 after an recreation of the lantern blades. They are evacuated to a large, rambling country house, home of the remote elderly professor, who might be either C.S. Lewis or God, and run by a stern housekeeper. Edmund is an outsider, more sensitive, vulnerable, and self-centered than the others. He risks his life during an area to save a picture of his father, absent on active services, with and his name derives from the cunning, manipulative brother in King Lear. Lucy is the most open to imaginative experiences, and it's she who enters the magical. Alternative world of Narina. 1 minute the kids are playing hide and seek to the strain of the Andrew sister. What jam hit on Johnny. The next minute, Lucky was walked into an arena through the mysterious wardrobe. In this snow-covered land, it is a perpetual winter due to the totalitarian White Witch who ruled into her secret police. When originally conceived by Lewis, Narina must have seemed like Nazis occupied France. The children are drawn into the conflict in Narina as part of an ancient prophecy. They are the only human being involved in a civil war between the Witchwild, the incarnation of evil, and the rebellious forces of good. Led by Aslan, a large fierce lion, her adherents are vicious talking wolves and the formed mutant. His begins followers include Fawn and Beaver. The children are initially divided in the way citizens of most occupied centuries are, while his siblings Side and Aslan. Edmund becomes a collaborator seduced by the wish there to offer of endless advantages out of his delight. We must remember that sweet rationing in Britain did not end until February 1953. The word Aslan is a Turkish warloin. For in Arena books Lewis drew on his immense knowledge of medieval literature, but his Lewis' commitment as a Christian apologist that has proved to be the most problematic sources, surprisingly in the one that J.R.R. Tolkien, who was largely responsible for his friend's conversation, found objectionable. The influences is to be found in several ways. One of those, both serious and jocular, arises when the first spring in century comes to Narina, heralded by the appearance of Father's Christmas. The presents he gives the four children are suitable for wartime kids or Christian soldier, and they come right out of the Black's journalism, a sword and shield for Peter, a bow and choir for arrows for Susan, dagger for little Lucy. But he also gives Lucy a potion for reviving the near dead, and this led us to Aslan, the lion speaking in the hillside. Voice of Lamb Nation Aslan is Chris the Redmere, who lays down his life to save humanity, following his humiliations and death. He is very specifically resurrected, with Susan and Lucy is attendance like to Mars. On the other hand, Aslan is very much the British lion, emblem of nations and empire, king of the jungle, the spirit of the unification. Children will not, however, have the films after his dramatic battle thinking of Aslan. The greatest impressions by is likely to have been made by the white witch. Her face was white, not merely pale. Lavish red but white like snow or paper or icing sugar, except for her very red mouth. It was a beautiful face in the other respect, but proud and cold and stern. He might have been describing the mature Tilda Swinton, who was born to play his role. Here is no as indelible an impersonation of a fictional character as W.C. Field. Better joke or Vivian Scarlet. I know this movie was released on way book back in 2005, and many of you have probably seen it already. But it is one of my all-time favorite, and I will gladly watch it a millions times over as I would never seen it for before. Before I actually begin to review this movie, I should tell you that you really don't need a review on this film to know that it will certainly be enjoyable. However, if that is not much as insurance to you, let me give you my full take on this film. The Chronicle of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is a film based on a series written Arthur. At the beginning, once the siblings learned that they were accepted to fulfill the prophecy, they immediately began to refuse. However, they were given no choice but to when Edmund, the youngest of the two brothers, went to the White Witch upon being trickled by her dark magic. To some, the plot may sound like a cheesy children's tale. However, if you rid yourself of that misconception and watch the movie, you will find that it's one of the most breathtaking and interesting movies of all time. The story is based on Christianity, and therefore it teaches many lessons through the action of the character. The acting is really well done. Each character has personality, and you will be able to understand them quite well. While watching this film, it is very easy to become attached to this character. When they has narrowly escapes during an air raid, Mrs. Pevensie decided to send our four children away for their safety. Little Lucy, her sister Susan, and brothers Peter and Edmund are put on a train and brought to their new home with Professor Kirke. Soon after their arrival, their siblings became dreadfully bored in the professor's large but uninhabited house. This leads them, despite the warning and prohibitions of his strict housekeeper, Mrs. McGrady, to pass time playing hide and seek. During the game, youngest child Lucy discovers a mysterious wardrobe that leads to a wonderfully magical world. One by one, Edmund, Peter, and Susan also find their way into the magical world and become swept up in a whirl of adventure and dungeon struggle of wood. The siblings encounter friends, but also enemies must face tricky situations and prove their endurance. Alongside the mighty lion Aslan, in the battle against the cruel white witch, the siblings not only grow closer, but also come to accept the important role they play in this war. The good news first, children are likely to enjoy the film. The four main actors, two girls, two boys, ranging from every young to teenagers, offer plenty of opportunities for a young audiences to identify with, and will therefore probably appeal more to kids and the adolescent than to adults. Although some scenes, particularly during battle sequences, may be a bit too frightening for very young. Overall, the film is appropriate for children and refrains from excessive brutality. There is no need to worry about odd sentence or anything of that sort in this scene. The name Disney is attached to Narina really does mean children's cinema. That children's films does not have to be the uninteresting of older viewer, and in fact, one capture and fascinate immature audiences too. Is proven by movies like Finding Nemo, Harry Potter of Spirit Away, The Chronicle of Narnia does not quite achieve this. The biggest Disney production of all time, quite from the press kit, is unlikely to impress much from an adult's perspective, and with its 140 minutes runtime feel decidedly long and sluggish. This is due largely to the figures and character, who come across as somewhat superficial and whose faces hardly inspire much concern or interest. The little Lucy, thanks to her big round eyes and chubby cheeks, is at least quite cute and earns a bite of an sympathy bonus. But the caring spider is a pleasant yet bland, and Susan with her perpetual sulking is generally annoying. Edmund, the fourth of the group, is a proper AK kid borrowing from Michael's, who first sucks and then turns into a wimp. The white witch stands out only through her dreadful wardrobe. Costume designer has certainly delivered more appealing work before, and while the various creatures are well crafted, shocking animals when real rather than drawn of otherwise animated simply feel disconnecting to me. It's not just the character, but also the whole narrative that lacks a certain spice, something special to grip you and hold your attention. It will be interesting to know how much the film adaptations differs from the book by C.S. Lewis. Perhaps it was cute made in adapting the story. That means many facets of Narina's remain hidden. What kind of world it is it? By what rules does it function? How did the white witch come to power? Where does the prophecy originate? The film, in any case, only half opens the portal to the magical world of Narnia. Director Andrew Adamson, who delivered two excellent work with his animated adventure, Shrek and Shrek 2. Disappointed with the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The much invoked, albeit not truly convincing, and certainly unfavorable to the film. Parallel to the Lord of Rings trilogy is really misplaced when it comes to Narina. Neither the story nor the execution, despite the involvement of Richard. After 25 years, one of the favorite books from my childhood is finally on the big screen. Thanks to Walt Disney Pictures and Walton Media, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The first in the Chronicles of Narnia series by C.S. Lewis arrived to movie theater December 2005. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe tells the story of four displaced London children, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy, who are sent to the country to avoid the devastation in London from World War II. They are taken to the countryside home of an electric professor, whose house holds many mysteries. One afternoon, during a game of hide and seek, the children stumbles upon a wardrobe, which leads to a mythical land called Narina. When this project was first announced, I was ecstatic. Being a long-term fan of this series, I could not wait to see his in the big screen. The movie was extremely entertaining and just the perfect of the holiday season. However, my hopes were not all fully realized. In many ways, The Lion, the Witch and His Wardrobe is a great movie. Tilda Swinton steals the show with her over-top portrayals of the White Witch. She is exactly what I have imagined for all these years. The actors and actresses picked up to portray the false children are also wonderfully cast, and the script is very faithful to the original novel. Narina was also not one without its flaws. In part, some of these flaws could not have been easy to spot if movies such as The Lord of the Rings never made it to be big screen. The director Adam Adamson should honestly stick to animated features such that he was known for Shrek, and shows that this is the first time this director has directed real actors videos just their voices for an animated movie. However, the main problem that I had with this film was the special effect. Yes, you did read this certain sentence right. The special effects were extremely super. Computerized special effects have advanced exponentially since their early days of Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park, but this film fails to live up to their standard. Every scene that had a computer animated character or an actor actresses on a green or blue background was easily spotted. I was a little shocked when I saw this as part of the special effect done for Narina's Want You Better. The special effect house created by Peter Jackson, who created a lot of the heroic series. It is not the fact that the technology doesn't exist. It just seems that the creators really did not fully utilize the technology. All in all, I will chalk up The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as an experiment for Disney in the fantasy genre after they passed over on Harry Potter and Lord of Rings. Kids will definitely look past the special effect problem and enjoy this movie. And if you can do that, you definitely will as well. For me, there are always 6 more books to go, and maybe the special effect will improve on next few years. I love the movies from the mid that try to capitalize on the success of the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. The Chronicles of Narnia series is probably my favorite. Part of that I know comes from the fact that I liked the book long before the movies ever came out, but I really would maintain that they are a good example of an adaptation of the novels into film that managed to capture the spirit and feelings of the book without failing prey to the pitfalls and many such adaptations. Yet it is another review where I use the film in questions as a train winner to stretch over a wider point about filmmaking that I actually want to make. Adapting anything into a cinema is difficult for a number of reasons, most of which boil down to the fundamental differences between cinema and every other medium. Books often get hit with his hardest of all. It's largely to do with size and pacing. A book can be thousands of words long and take several hours to read through. The pacing of a book is thus very different because it has to hold the reader's attention for all those hours. It might achieve this with a constant slugger of action-based scene, physical action, or some other part of the attention-keeping method, such as sex scene, big argument, dramatic, but most books do it with a combination of scene, setting, description, and characters development, using the extra pages and word count to be able to really dive into how characters are feeling about things, or also describe in detail how pretty that landscape looks. Chronicle of Narnia goes mostly with the landscape option. There's also heavy amount of wood dog. This was after all post-war and children wanted lush description of all the food they until still could not eat because of rationing the characters of the book are actually surprising spare. None of them go through a significant amount of emotional turmoil about finding themselves in a fantasy land destined to fight an evil witch. In fact, after a short conversation, they come completely around to the idea. Pater does not waver in his determination to be the upstanding English school boy and become the High King. Aside from Edmund, there's very little in way of character drama from them. Part of this is, of course, the time period C.S. was writing it, when it was a fairly standard hope for upstanding English school was to just adapt to whatever situation they found themselves in and be good example of Christians' virtue and character. The problem is that nowadays we think that make for a supremely boring character. This is one of my many examples of where the Chronicles of Narnia film series proved to be the good adaptations. They turn the children into real people who are scared at being trapped in fantasy land. Protest that he can't get involved in a war. Peter is clearly terrified when he wants to fight a wolf instead of bravely charging into battle. Given how other movies adapting books tend to cut out characterizations, opening is here to make the character into caricatures of book counterpart. I'm looking at you, Ron Weasley. It's refreshing for Chronicles of Narnia to make the child heroes more relatable, even if sometimes it falls down a little because the child actor were not quite up to the challenge of conveying that atom. Very complex emotional weight. Their being asked to film itself gives the story a far more real triumvirate than the book. The second thing that in Narnia gets right in is changing up the pacing of the movie. While C.S. Lewis took 100 words to describe and page Chronicle of Narnia as a film can convey a single camera shot, meaning that the need for the elaborate description is reduced. Since so much of book is taken up in describing the fantasy land, this does impact on the pacing. The way that the film's versions compensate is to shuffle things around a little. Everyone's getting into the wardrobe is dealt with nice and promptly at the beginning of the movie, sparing only enough time to establish the basic character traits of the heroes. Peter wants to be in a charge but is clearly also a scared little boy. Susan is moderately but as with Peter still a child trying to fill the role because he feels perceived pressure to. Edmund is the rebellious and Lucy is idealistic and the dreamer. The film does not need more than that, so it does not give us more than that. Knowing that the point of story about children going to a magical land is to get them to that magical land. It also adds a few smaller action set pieces, such as when the children are escaping from the secret police. This is also a good change of pace as in book. This entire scene was just the children trudging through snow and looking at the bleak landscape as it began to change. Once more what worked in the big books as a tense and exciting escape would have simply looked like a whole lot of working and it being adapted note for note. Showing the actual battle at the end also gives the film a nice cinematic note as opposed to it all being described after the effect in the book. Adaptations of books often get criticized for changing the source material, but sometimes it is necessarily, and as long as it's handled in a way that still captures the original feeling, then I am all of it. Chronicles of Narnia know that it is an exciting fantasy adventure, and if it lands into that, the battle are at four people. I expect the gorgeous landscape, the plucky yet well differentiated child heroes. It's all here and it's been well translated to be screen. The first Chronicles of Narnia films still hold up exceptionally, as well as a good all-round adaptations of a children's novel to a family-friendly adventure film. It might not be a quite up there with be a Harry Potter adaptations, but it's a far cry from the dismal Percy Jackson or fold rubbish. The four parents are children Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucky are sent away from the Blairs in wartime London to stay with the eccentric Professor Kirk in his large country mansion. While playing hide and seek, Lucky discovers a wardrobe, and inches passing through the other side to find himself in a snow-bound forest. She meets a fallen Mr. who invited her for tea and explained that she is in the land of Narnia. However, when Lucy returns through the closet and finds that no time has passed, that a ridiculous word story. She returns through the wardrobe in the middle of the night and is followed by Edmund. Edmund encounters the White Witch, who rules the land and refuses to allow Christmas to come. The White Witch tempts Edmund with the promise of Turkish delight if he will bring the others through the wardrobe, fleeing after the no cricket ball through a window. The four children hide in the wardrobe and discover Narnia. Once they are there, the White Witch seeks to kill them in order to prevent a prophecy that says the coming of four kings and queen will spell her end. Edmund returns to the witch seeking his reward, only to be made her prisoner. The other place their trust in the mighty lion Aslan, the lord of the forest who has no return to marshal the creatures of the land to stand up against the forces of the White Witch. It is safe to say that if there had not been a success for Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring 1001, the Lord of the Rings The Two Towers, and Return of the King, Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe looks exactly like studio. And they rush around to find other properties to exploit the newfound boom in high fantasy had alighted on the C.S. Lewis book as eminently fameable. Not to mention that his seventh book, Narnia says has much potential to span up an ongoing franchise. The association also extends to the films of Lord of Rings and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which both draw upon or seeks to draw upon a New Zealand connection. A Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson put New Zealand on the map in terms of major filmmaking and enjoyed extraordinary success. The people behind The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe clearly also sought to exploit his connection. The director chosen for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was Andrew Adamson. Andrew Adamson is a New Zealander who began in the film industry, in the visual effects department at the Pacific Data Images, working on Joel, two Batman acquaintances, among others before graduating to co-directors of DreamWorks, the animated film Shrek 2001 and the sequel Shrek 2004. Andrew Adamson brought the entire production of The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe home to New Zealand to film clearly in allowing him to do so. Disney seemed to think they could exploit whatever association that New Zealand had in the public mind with the Lord of the Rings and Peter Jackson. Even further than that, Adamson managed to employ a number of people from Jackson's team, most notably the Oscar-winning effect and creature design Will Richards Taylor and his Veta workshop team. While it was the triumph of the Lord of the Rings that allowed Land and Witch's Wardrobe to get off the ground, the film that almost certainly influenced, at least when it came to be marketing, was the massive success of Mel Gibson. Gibson made the Passion of the Christ independently as a work of person's fate. Against predictions, the film became a runaway sensation, while the success of Passion of the Christ clearly identified was that criticism made up a substantial percentage of the audiences in the American heartland. The Passion of the Christ essentially opened up a new market as far as Hollywood was concerned and created the notion of marketing campaign that stepped around the visual roads, TV, internet, and the theatrical, and pitched and even previewed the film in church to Christian audiences. It was this marketing strategy that propelled this utterly mediocre to become a box hit. This strategy has also been employed when it comes to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Here Disney employed a dual-level marketing strategy very regionally based, while devising another entirely strategy that promoted, previewed, and distributed material in church across the world, playing up the Christian allegory aspect of the story. Indeed, this dual marketing stream is seemingly independent of each other, was so successful that you could not find a single piece of the mainstream promotion about the line and which any wardrobe that is anywhere told you about the Christians, Allegory aspect, or even C.S. Lewis' backgrounds as a writer on Christians matter. On the other hand, and one is left wondering whether Disney's stratagem is one that actually works. In playing the New Zealand connection chord, one hand wonders what it is aside from some of exceedingly generous tax break that the government granted big budget filmmaker, falling that Disney's imagined they would get from the country, accepting hoping maybe that some of the mana the country held for Peter Jackson's might up offend a film too. One cannot help but wonder if Andrew Adamson would have ended up as the director of a $180 million budget film like this had he and had a Kiwi passport and had Peter Jackson's not been there before him. After all, Adamson was an animation actor who had never worked with a live-action actor before stepping onto the set of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Adamson was one of the co-directors on Shrek, and for all engaged to be regarded as a new market niche for mainstream filmmaker. These touch-based marketing strategies make one wonder about the fate of the Christian that embarrass these movies. There does seem something oddly in allowing one's fare to be exploited by secular market companions whose only desire is all movie ticket. And beneath all of is when look at the film in question. There does seem something hypocritical. Christian groups have been top and massive children's party Williams, Solson, and adjunct. Narnia discovered they are part of prophecy to feed Narnia from the clutches of the White Witch. I remember going to be cinema to see The Lion, the Witch and Wardrobe, but can't quite believe that was 15 years ago. I grew up reading to Chronicles of Narnia and really enjoyed the film's adaptations. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is one of the most faithful book to film adaptations I have seen, especially for a children series where so often what ends up on screen is completely different to what's on the page. Perhaps it helped the Narnia books are certified classic and are known across the generation, or it's just more proof to be the care and heart that was put into the film by everyone involved. There are some moments that don't grab your attention as much as others, but overall, The Lion and Witch and the Wardrobe is a story of hope, perseverance and good triumphing over evil. It's a universal story and one that's told very well from the production and set design to the performances. The four young leads are all wonderful and they do feel like real siblings. Georgie Henley as Lucy is especially brilliant as it's with her that she encountered Narnia for the first film and her wonder and delight is infection. For me, Edmund, he always been the most interesting of the Penwinsall sibling. He's jealous of his older brother and he can be mean but over the course of film matures as he sees the consequences of his actions and strive to help others and do good. Scandals and done a good job at showing how spiteful Edmund can be, but also how sympathetic and remorseful he truly is. Tilda Swinton is the white witch. She is menacing the cruel and can switch from being seemingly kind and caring to vicious in a second in order to get what she wants. She is a foreboding presence even when she is not on screen, and it's clear to see why the creature of Narnia fear her so. Half the fun of the Lion the King, the Wardrobe, is hearing well-known voices come from a variety of creatures. Ravenson and John French as Mr. and Mrs. River is a delight. The special effect, makeup, and costume that bring the creatures of Narnia to life are fantastic and still hold up 15 years later. One has to wonder how the filmmakers here made a pretty lion and Aslan that looks and acts like a lion while still being able to emote. And the lion and the creatures in The Lion King 2010 just don't emote at all. The Lion, the Witch and Wardrobe is a film that is still full of magic. The care and attention to put on everything from the costume and special effect to the score and the story means that it looks just as good as just as enjoyable all these years later. Who has not heard of the magical world beyond the wardrobe? It has to be one of the most well-known fantasy world to be depicted in the literature and on screen. The lampposts which stand in the boundary, the unusual creatures that walk the forest, the trees who listen. Narnia is a wonderfully creative land to become lost into it. Welcome to Narnia. This is the beginning of this magical world. This is the introduction of the lion, the witch and the wardrobe. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is setting during World War II, when your children are evacuated from London to the countryside for children's better. So, son, in a game of hide and seek, accidentally discover the world inside the wardrobe, embarking on a new journey. Which Narnia. The children learned of a prophecy that evil will end when two sons of Adam and two daughters of Eve defeated the witch. Unknown to be the children's, this foresee is about wisdom. This world is so fantastically brought to life that children are great in their role. In my eyes, these four actors will forever be the Pevensie children. They are not fantastic all the time, because there are some moments that are not great. Nevertheless, for a 2005 film, they are pretty good a majority of the time. Narnia is a superbly brought to life. I truly love this film. Narnia is such a magical world to escape into. It's an exceptional family film, enjoyable for all. By the end, you are just filled with so much warmth. It has everything you could possibly need. Lots of adventures, a fantasy world to adore. Even a great plot to intrigue you straight away. There is even a bite of action with an epic figure scene to book in every Odysseus. Yes, Levy's classic of children's fantasy literature, to which six installments of steeply declining interest and power were added, has now been brought to the screen by Andrew Adamson of Shrek fame. The result is a triumph. It is gorgeous to look at, superbly cast, widely directed and funny and exciting by turns. It unfolds a slim book into a rich visual experiences that is bold and spectacular and sweeping while retaining its human intimacies. I can't see how it could be done better. Perhaps Mel Gibson would have preferred Aslan to be waved with the barbed wire for 30 minutes before the main event, but Adamson handled it with the finest. There will be many adults like me who, after loving the book as children, went through a long post-adolescent phase of the historically repudiated it after the Christian humanist parable was explained. For me, it is a phase that this movie has definitely brought to the end. Adamson brings out his story's romantic gallantry and his wonderful, generous approach to childhood. For all the seriousness and Blackian Association of England, with Christianity, the film has a lightness of touch, simply by having the human beings as character. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is different from Tolkien, and his heavy-footed meat, and naturally, there is a connection. And Adamson sensibly builds on Peter Jackson technical achievement in staging and narrative. What the director has done in bringing it closer to playful gravity of Lewis Carroll, and also the escapes of the young quartet in Enid Blyton adventure series. As all of the world know, this is a story of four middle-class children in the Second World War, whose father is away fighting the evil of Nazism. They are evacuated from Franklin in London to a country house, which is here increased to the size of a gigantic mansion, presided over by an apparently but actually very distant old boy. The youngest of the children, Lucy, a scene thriller of a performance from newcomer Georgie Henley, plays in hide and seek with the boisterous siblings and leaps into the wardrobe, pushing through a dense mass of force and become fire. She tumbles out into a snowy forest in the land of Narnia. In whose snowflake Cinderella glass lightningly glow. The place is under the spell of the evil white witch, who was caused to remain forever. Winter without the Christmas until they were betrayed by the fourth savior. Children under the command of the lion Aslan, a redeemer figure voiced by Lamb Neeson, with the help of friendly bravers spoken by Don French and Ray Winston, and a droll. Tilda Swinton plays the White Witch, and it is her finest hour. She has always been as much icon as actor, a kind of living, brightening installation, and therefore difficult to cast, especially in a modern setting. But her status quo haunter and that our worldly presence are simply right where. Swinton has a particularly good opening scene in which she white witch damned young Edmund into betraying his friends with an indicious, addictive dollop of a Turkish delight. Kane is very persuasive as the ordinary weak Edmund, a figure traditionally glossed as Judas. Although there is a something more recognizable and English about the Edmund filler. Latter White wishes so snare at the capture from Mr. Thomas that his fellow captive Tanjo in a false sweetest. That line reminded me, not entirely ironically, of Vincent Smith and his Sam in Orwell's 1984 and how weakness and rashness can be found beneath the surface of English decency. The final sacrifice of Aslan is conveyed with absolute seriousness yet never feels preachy. The line The Wish and the Wardrobe is a miraculously complete, digestible epic in itself, and I wonder if annual episode of the succeeding 6 stories, in which the Levi spokes himself into an ever-narrowing theological corner, might be rather heavy matter, especially as the children will presumably need to be recast. This is more than good enough to be going on with. There is no need for anyone to get into a PG of about his Christian allegory. With his movies beyond fun, Adamson provides something akin to the scene of the humor Graham Greene said he needed in order to believe. Although you don't need to believe in a fairy tale to find it enchanting. C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia's books, and J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote the Ring trilogy, were friends who taught at Oxford at the same time, were a pipe smoker, drank in the same pub, took Christianity seriously. But also Lewis loved Tolkien's universe. The affection was not returned. Well, no wonder when you are created your own universe. How do you feel when, in the word of poem by Cumming, listen, there is a hell of a good universe next door. C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia book, and J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote the Ring trilogy, were friends who taught at Oxford at the same time, where pipe smokers drank in the same pub. Seriously, but Alto Lewis loved Tolkien's universe. The affection was not returned. Well, no wonder when you are created your own universe, how do you feel when, in the word of poem B by Cummings, listen, there is a hell. Tolkien's universe was in the unspecified Middle Earth, but Lewis really was next door. In the opening scene, the lion with Wish and the Wardrobe, two brothers and two sisters from the Pevensie family, are evacuated from London and sent to live in a West Country house where they will be safe from the naughty Nazi air raids. Playing hide and seek, Lucy, the youngest, ventures into a wardrobe that opens directly onto a snowy landscape there, or before long Mr. is explaining to her that he is a fan. There are mythological creatures in Narnia, but most of the speaking roles go to human like the White Witch. If indeed she is a human, an animal who would be right at home in the zoo. If indeed they are animal. The kids are from a tradition which requires that British children be polite and well spoken. No doubt because Lewis preferred them they were. What is remarkable is that this bookish bachelor who did not marry until he was nearly 60 would create 4 children so filled with life and pluck. There is a charm of the Narnia stories. They contain magic and myth. but their mysteries are resolved not by the kind of rabbit that Tolkien pulled out of his hat, but by the determinations and resolve of the Pevensie kids, who have a good deal of help. To be sure, from Aslan to Line for those who read the Lewis book as a Christian parable. Aslan filed the role of Christ because he is a resurrected from the dead. I don't know if that makes a white witch into Satan, but Tilda Swinton plays a role as if she has not ruled out by possibility. The adventure that Lucy has in Narnia, at first by herself, then with her brother Edmund, and finally with the older Pater and Susan, are the sort of things that might happen in any British forest. Always assuming fawns, lion and witches can be found here, as I am sure they can, only toward the end of the swim to do special effect, ramp into the spectacular extravagance that might have caused Lewis to have snapped his pipe stem. It is the witch who has kept Narnia in frigid cold for a century. No doubt because he is descended from the Edgerton landlady. Under the rules, Jonas is supposed to deliver Lucy, to which they fought with. But Franz are not heavy hitter, and he takes mercy. Lucy returns to the country house and he pops out of the wardrobe. Where no time at all has passed and no one will believe her story. Edmund follows her into the wardrobe that evening and is gobsmacked by the white witch who proposes to make him a prince. But Pater and Susan don't believe Lucy until all four children tumble through the wardrobe in Narnia. They meet the first of the movie's CJ-generated character, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, and Don French, who invite them into their home, which is delightfully cozy for being made of logistic. The Beavers explain the Narnia situation to them just before an attack by the computerized wolves whose dripping fan reached hungrily through the twist. Edmund by now has gone off on his own and gotten himself taken hostage, and the beavers hold out hope that perhaps the legendary Aslan, voiced by Liam, can save him. This involves Aslan trying for Edmund's sign, much as Chris died forever. Aslan's eventual resurrection leads into an apocalyptic climax that may be inspired by revelation. These events, fantastical as they sound, take place on a more human, or at least more earthly, scale than those in Lord of Rings. The personalities and character traits of the children have something to do with the outcome, which is not being decided by wizards on a real level of reality, but will be dug out right here in Narnia. The battle owes something to Lois' thought about the first two words, wise is likely. After nothing in Narnia is as horrible as the trans warfare or the first or the Nazis of the second. The film has been directed by Andrew Adamson, who directed both of the Shrek movies and supervised the special effect on the boat of Joel. C.S. Lewis famously said he never wanted the Narnia books to be the film because he feared the animal would turn into the buffoonery or nightmare. But he said that in 1959, when he might have been thinking of a man wearing a lion suit or puppet. The effects in this movie are so skillful that the animals look about as real as any other character. And the critics annual Levy explained the secret. Aslan speaks in a natural, organic manner, which means mapping the movement of his face onto the whole of the animal just as mouth. Aslan is neither as frankly animated as the Lion King or as real as a cheetah in Joma, but halfway in between, as if an animal were inhabited by an archbishop. This is a film situated precisely on a delivering line between the traditional family entertainment and the new action-oriented family film. It is charming and scary in about equal measure, and confident for the first act that it can be wonderful without having to hammer into enjoying it, or else. Then it started hammering some of the scene toward the end, push the edge of the PG envelope. Unlike the Harry Potter series, the Narnia stories may eventually tear it over into R, but is remarkable. It's not a dirty British have produced Narnia, starring Hogwarts, James Bond, Alice, and Rose. Coming after Peter Jackson's storming imaginative redemption of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and opening in the same time frame as that New Zealand short trilogy, which dominated pre-Christmas box office from 2001 to 2003. The expectations that be nothing less than spectacular. Unfortunately, it is not faithfully adapted from source material which has always lacked depth. If not the imagination of the Tolkien, the line, the vision, the wardrobe is a somewhat flat rendition of a childhood tale despite Tilda Swinton's as the film's villain, Jadis the White Witch. Possibly it feels flat or so undeniable high, more so given the fact that as fans, young and old, are only too aware. The first book in the series has the widest but while the line, The Wishland the Wardrobe is certainly competent film, making what's equally certain that is not outstanding. This won't deter children's and Chikor fans, ensuring Narnia should deliver a strong opening when it rolled out in the UK and US on December 9. Certainly, fans of the series will have little to do quibble about also. Like Edmund, one of the book's younger hero, an enchanted Turkish delight that tempts him, they may find themselves yearning for more. Much as has been the made of the series' rather blunt Christian theme, C.J. Lewis, after all, converted to Christianity at the behest of the Lord of the Rings writer J.R.R. Tolkien in 1931 and penned the Narnia book format late 1940 onward. With the endorsement of the in the US and UK, Narnia is a hoping for a passion of the Christ styled religious audiences